Hi, I'm Brandon Grant, Sales and Marketing Director here at QuoteWerks. In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to use our product content subscription to search, source, and select items from Etilize Australia. Etilize is a third-party company that provides rich product content such as product pictures, customer-friendly descriptions, and much more. One of the most powerful features about the Etilize integration is that you will no longer have to manage your price list from the supported vendors such as Ingram Micro and Distributors. You'll be able to do a live search, get real-time pricing and availability, and select an item for your document. So let's get started. So first we'll show you how to use the Etilize integration to search and pull items into QuoteWerks. We'll then show you how you can update existing items using the integration, and then we'll walk through the setup of the integration at the end of this video. So let's go ahead and click on the product icon on our toolbar. This will open up our product lookup window. On the left-hand side of this window, you'll see a list of all the databases that you've set up in QuoteWerks. If you've added your Etilize subscription information into your installation, you should see the Etilize database here. So we'll go ahead and click on it. When you click on the database, on the right-hand side, you'll see the search for field will be available. This is where you will search for your items from Etilize. You can search by pretty much anything. You can search by vendor part number, manufacturer part number, vendor, manufacturer, product description, keyword. Really any way you want to look for the item, you can do so here. The search works best when you put in more information. So if you know you're looking for a Lenovo laptop, but you know you're looking for a very specific model, go ahead and put the model number in. If you don't know exactly what you're looking for, then you can use generic terms, and then we can use filters to kind of narrow down our search results. So for example, if I knew an exact part number, I could type in the part number, hit enter, and my results would return. But if I don't know exactly what I'm looking for, the part number, I can type in a more general search. So if we do Cisco switch, and then before we hit find, you'll see there's a checkbox that says in stock recently. This will help limit the search results to only items that have been in stock within the last 24 hours from my supported vendors, in this case Ingram Micro and Distributors. So let's go ahead and click find. So after everything loads, if you look at the very bottom of this window, you'll see we're displaying the first 28 results out of over 10,000 items. So because I used a very generic term in my search, I'm going to get a lot of results for my item. That's not a problem though, because we can now use these categories, manufacturers, and feature and attributes filters located below the search bar to actually find and filter down to the items I'm looking for. So we'll start with our categories. If you look at the various categories that are available here, you'll see there's a number in parentheses next to it. So for instance, I know I'm looking for a switch, so I want to limit my results to switches and bridges. When I click on this will actually reduce my results to 2,400 items. So that's obviously still a lot, but it's way less than 10,000. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. Now that I've reduced my results down to only 2,400 items, I can continue using manufacturers, features, and attributes. In this example, the manufacturers are all Cisco because I use Cisco switch, so it's not really going to reduce my results any. But these features and attributes can. So for instance, if I wanted to do, let's say, layer supported, and click on, it's going to be layer 2 supported. So when we click on that, that's going to reduce my results down to 822 items. And then if we go into these feature and attributes more, maybe product family here, and let's scroll down and say, okay, we're looking for a very specific product family. Okay, well this 2960X only has 24 items, so that's much more manageable. So you'll see my items are now listed on my right-hand side. So we went down from 10,000 items to just 24 search results with just a couple clicks of a button. So that's where the power of Etilize can really help you narrow down your search results if you're not exactly sure what you're looking for. But like I said, you can always go back and add in the part number or search by the part number if you want to, if you know exactly what you're looking for. So once you have a list of your search results on the right-hand side of the search window, you'll see we have our manufacturer, part number, the manufacturer, description, Etilize distributors column, category column, recent stock, list high, and list low. These columns provide you just with more information about the particular item, especially when you select it. If there's a column that you see in this video that you don't see available in your installation, click on the Customize Columns button right here, And that will allow you to add any columns that may exist. So you may have a list of columns here that aren't in your selected columns, and you can simply add them. If there's columns in here that you don't need to view or you don't want to view, you can actually remove them from the selected columns list and they won't appear here. So it's a really easy way to kind of customize the search window when you are looking for items in Etilize. You can also rename these columns and also move them around if you want to put them in a different order. So one of the columns that's really useful is the Etilize Distributors column. So for example, if we click on this 24 ports item here, you'll see that it says IM and DD. This is basically telling you that these two distributors, Ingram Micro and Dicker Data, typically carry this item. It's a nice little visual indicator when you're reviewing other items as to which one of your vendors may have that item in stock. When you select an item by clicking on it, your pricing and availability will load from your supported vendors, in this case Ingram Micro and Dicker Data. When you click on Ingram Micro, in parentheses you'll see the current availability for that particular item. If it's at 0, a lot of times underneath the availability of the warehouse, you may also see that the item is on back order with an ETA. So it just depends on what type of information Ingram Micro is providing, but a lot of times they do provide when they expect to have more of that item in stock. You'll also see with Dicker Data here, our pricing is different. So we have $3,100 and change for Dicker Data and $3,100 for Ingram Micro, but it's a little less expensive with Dicker Data. So it actually highlights in green your best cost. Now maybe you get a better deal with Ingram, maybe you can negotiate with Ingram or something like that. So you want to go ahead and source it from Ingram instead. It's up to you. You can choose which vendor you want to source it from. To source it from a particular vendor, you simply need to select the vendor and click on the Select Add button, or if you double click on the vendor, that'll bring up the Add Item Assistant where you can adjust the quantity, mark up the item, and go ahead and add it to the quote. In addition to being able to select which vendor you'd like to source the item from, you may see occasionally the vendor part number highlighted in yellow. This means that more than one vendor part number exists for this item. QuoteWerks will automatically choose the vendor part number that is active for this particular item. So for example, this is an old part number provided by Ingram Micro. If we select it, you'll see that it's not found because it's no longer in use. It's an inactive part number. So by clicking on the dropdown, we can select the active part number from the available list. One of the really great features about Etilize is it also provides more technical information for many of the items in the database. So if we click on the Spec Sheet tab, you'll see a complete technical breakdown of this particular item. This is something that you can use internally as like a selling point for your customer. And it's even something you can add to your customer's document. You can do so by clicking on the Add to Links tab button here. And this will actually save this as a PDF on the Links tab of the particular quote you're working on in QuoteWerks, so that this is something that can actually be delivered to the customer so they have that technical information as well. If we go back to the Etilize Sourcing tab, there's also a Compare button. The Compare button will add this item to the Etilize product comparison window. And we're just going to move this here so it's a little easier to see. But this Etilize product comparison window will do just that. It'll let you compare multiple items at once against each other. So instead of having to search and then select individual items and look them over and try to remember the differences between them, you can actually select multiple items at a time and add them to this product comparison. So you can do that by selecting an item, and once the item loads, simply click on the Compare button, and that'll add that item to the comparison window. You can also multi-select items at the same time by holding Control on your keyboard and selecting from your search, and then right-clicking and choosing the option of Compare Product Features Etilize. And when you do that, if we click back to our product comparison window, we'll actually see a breakdown of the various items that I've added to the document. So from here, we can actually see the differences as they're going to be highlighted in yellow for you. So you can see the product models are obviously going to be different, and the name, the marketing information that's available, the technical breakdown. All this information is going to be available to you so you can see the differences in these items, and then you can choose which one you'd like to add to the document. You can also get the pricing and availability across all these items so you can see which one fits your price point or for the customer's price point when you are building this document. One of the really cool features about using this document is that you can use it as a selling tool as well. So if you wanted to add this as a PDF to your links tab, you can do that. So you can provide the customer with like a good, better, best option, or maybe an option that you are recommending versus the option that they wanted, that type of thing. You can show them the technical breakdown of these items. If you do add this as a PDF to the links tab, it'll automatically remove the part number and any pricing that may be loaded in here. So the customer will only see basically what we see here is just a list of the items without the part number information, but all the product information for the marketing summary and technical breakdown for them. All right, so let's go ahead and close out of there. So as you can see, using Etilize is pretty straightforward, very easy to search for items based on part number or just a generic search, and then narrowing down using the filters available. In addition to being able to search for items in Etilize, you can also save items for use at another time. So when you have an item selected, if you right click again, you'll see there's an option that says add Etilize product to my favorites. And when you click on this, it'll actually add it to your Etilize My Favorites folder. This is a great place to store items that you sell on a regular basis. That way, instead of having to do a search for those particular items, you can quickly and easily go to your My Favorites folder, view the items in there, and then start quoting them out. If you go into your product lookup window over here on the left-hand side and you click on the Etilize expand button, you'll see your My Favorites folder here. And when we click on it, we'll see a list of any items that have been added. I haven't added any items to My Favorites folder, so none exist, but you'll see the items there with the part number, manufacturer, and then it'll load the Etilize information from there. Okay, so now moving on, one of the other great features about Etilize is the ability to use it with other databases. So for example, I have a database over here called Cisco, and if I select this database, you'll see a list of my items. Next to the delete button is the Etilize panel button. And anytime you see this Etilize panel button, this will allow you to cross-reference items in a database or even on your quote workbook, which we'll go over in just a moment, with Etilize. So if you've created an item in your database and you want to check pricing and availability before you quote it, as long as you have the manufacturer part number and the manufacturer, or the vendor part number and the vendor, you'll be able to cross-reference it with Etilize with Ingram Micro and Dicker Data if you've set up your accounts with them. The great thing about this feature is that this will allow us to update this item if the product picture has changed, if there's a better customer-friendly description, if there's a marketing summary we want to include. We can now actually load this information from Etilize in addition to checking pricing from our distributors. You can also have access to the spec sheet information as well if you didn't have that before. So if we said we want to go ahead and source this item from Dicker Data, we can do that. Say we need 2 of them, and we'll quickly add them to the document. You can toggle the panel on and off just by clicking on the Etilize button. So if you don't want to use it and you simply just want to add a couple items to the document, you can do that as you typically would building your quote in QuoteWerks. Okay, so let's close out of here and go back to our quote workbook. So in addition to being able to search Etilize directly and also using it to cross-reference items in another database, you can also use Etilize to refresh items on an existing quote. So if this quote was, let's say, 6 months old, and the customer comes back and says, we're interested in getting an updated quote and possibly moving forward, instead of having to start your quote from scratch, you could actually refresh the pricing of the individual items and also cross-reference it with Etilize to get the new product picture if one's available, maybe in a different description or a marketing summary. So to do that, simply highlight one of the items, and then on your grid toolbar here, click on the Show Hide Etilize panel, and that'll open up that Etilize panel window. So you can check your pricing information. So now maybe Dicker Data has a better price, so you want to source it from Dicker Data. Maybe you want to add the spec sheet to your links tab for you, so you can include that with your customer. And maybe the item detail is different as well. So maybe we want to update the item detail to just a little bit more manageable, something a little not as lengthy. So we'll choose update. We can do that. So it just provides a really easy way to go through your various items, and you can just go through and kind of click on them and update them with the various information. If you don't have that pricing available, or if you don't have a product picture associated with it, you can refresh that item. Now, a lot of times you may have received a vendor quote from Ingram Micro or maybe Dicker Data, and you negotiated special pricing. And when you pull that into QuoteWerks using the pay special, you wanted to update those items with the Etilize data, so the product picture, the customer friendly description, the marketing summary information, but you don't want to change your pricing. So instead of using the Etilize panel button, you can actually use this refresh item with Etilize details icon instead. And when you do that, it will go out to Etilize, cross-reference that item using the vendor and vendor part number or the manufacturer and manufacturer part number. You have to have one set of those fields, so either vendor and vendor part number or manufacturer and manufacturer part number. And it'll go out and it'll retrieve that customer-friendly description, that marketing summary, and that product picture for you, but it won't touch your pricing. So if you've negotiated that special pricing with your vendors, you can still use Etilize this way to update those items. And you can even do multiple items at once. So if you remember, we changed this to the shorter description. So if we go in here and we refresh these items, we can actually refresh them all at once. It'll update it with the new information. And then once it completes, you can go back in here, and if we double click in here, you'll see we have that longer description now. So it's returned that original description to my document. So it's a really easy way to update items on your document without you having to go back manually or worried about your pricing getting updated. Okay, so let's go ahead and preview this document in QuoteWerks just to see what it would look like. So let's click on our deliver window here. And then we'll select our document layout and a cover page. If you want to include any of your literature documentation, you can do that as well. And we'll take a preview of the PDF version of the document first. So if we skip down to where our document actually begins, and we're just going to zoom in here so it's a little easier to see. You'll see we have our item from our customer-facing description, and then here's that marketing summary along with the product picture. So you can include that more detailed information. And typically in Etilize, this marketing information is going to be stored in the custom memo 01 field. So you can always add that to your layouts if you want to display it. If you don't want to display the secondary description, you can remove it from the document from your layout, or you can just remove it from the custom memo field if there's one that you don't need to add. But you can see here, we go through our items to have our nice product pictures and those nice descriptions to round out those items so we can see that information. So looks really good on the quote. And then same thing in Quote Valet. If we upload this to Quote Valet, so if you guys are using Quote Valet, we'll go ahead and we'll upload it. And then we'll just preview it. So scroll down. So you'll see there's our PDF attached, and then there's our various items with the product picture information so the customer can see the breakdown. Same thing with Quote Valet. If you wanted to provide that marketing summary information that's in the PDF, you just need to add that field to your Quote Valet layouts, and that's supported as well. So you can be able to do that also. Okay, so let's go back into QuoteWerks. We're just going to close out of here. The last part of the Etilize integration we want to cover is using Etilize to populate bundles and configuration. So if you're using Etilize and you'd like to create a bundle or a configurator to use the items from Etilize, you can easily do that. So I'll show you how. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on bundles. And then we're just going to use this bundle right here, and we're going to click edit. And then we're going to go to our items tab. So to add an item or source an item in a bundle or configurator, it's actually going to work the same way for your configurators. Simply choose add item, and you would simply go to Etilize and you would just do your search. So we'll do the same thing we did before, Cisco switch, in stock recently. Start narrowing down our items. And here's an item here. We'll go ahead and we'll just use this item just for our example. And we'll double click it. And then when you do that, you'll see here, it'll prompt you to retrieve this from the product database, which is what we want to do. It's going to come from Etilize. There's a part number and description. You can change the quantity if you'd like, the sort order, all that information, and then the various options that are here. And then when you click OK, you'll see it exists in your document. You'll also see when you add it to the bundles that the source will be listed as Etilize. And then if we scroll to the right, you'll see the Etilize vendor. Mine says Ingram Micro because that's the vendor I had selected when I added the item. If you wanted to source it from Dicker Data by default, you simply would select Dicker Data first and then add the item into the bundle. So very easy to source from either vendor in your bundles, and you just repeat as necessary for however many items are going to be in this bundle from Etilize. And it'll work the exact same way for the configurator as well. And then we'll just close there to save our settings. Okay, so we've walked through how to use the Etilize integration. Now let's talk about setting up the integration. The setup is going to be very, very simple. In QuoteWerks, you're going to go to Tools, Options, and then you should see a real-time tab. If you don't see this real-time tab, it means your real-time licensing is either not activated or it's just not in your installation. So you can contact the sales team and they can get you straightened out with that. When you see your real-time tab, click on Real-Time Setup. And you'll want to click on the Ingram Micro tab. You need to add your Ingram Micro user ID and password for XML. So this is actually different than your website credentials. Ingram Micro Australia should provide you with different credentials for your XML for QuoteWerks. If you don't have those, just request them from them. They can get those to you, and then once you have them, you'll drop them here on this Ingram Micro tab. And then very important, make sure you set the region to Australia. Otherwise, when you're searching for items, because different regions use different part numbers, you're not going to get your pricing and availability, won't find it. So make sure you have your region set here. To set up Dicker Data, you're going to click on Other Real Time and then scroll down, and you'll see there's a Dicker Data option, and then there's an Activate Feed, and yours is most likely set to No, and so you just want to change it to Yes, that it's active. And then finally, you want to click on your product content subscription. Again, first step, change the region to Australia. Very important checkbox. This should be set automatically for you, but if it's not, go ahead and check it. This removes the manufacturer part number from the Etilize description. Also makes the description a little cleaner instead of having this, wordy kind of part number in the description as well. Additionally, you have the option to map to a QuoteWerks item type, the price modifier, and to a tax code. This will allow you to take the Etilize categories and map them to specific fields in QuoteWerks. Additionally, you'll see there's a default item type for unmapped categories. Typically, items that you're pulling from Etilize are going to be products. Occasionally, you will pull services like warranties and things like that, but most of the items are going to be products. So we do suggest, especially for the ConnectWise and Autotask users, setting the default item type to product, and then you can always change it on the fly if you need to. Once you've made all those changes, simply click OK to save them. And then click OK again. And that's it. You're all set up and you're ready to go, so you can start using the QuoteWerks integration with Etilize Australia. If you have any questions or need any assistance, please visit the QuoteWerks help file or feel free to send us an email or give us a call. Thanks for watching.